say it again. This is the final installment about complaining. And it's not going to be just me complaining about you guys. So you're in a treat there. But the first 2 weeks, for those of you who weren't here, basically week 1 was things we're allowed to complain about. And I said that the big thing we get in scriptures is you're allowed to complain about not enjoying the process of regeneration. You leave Egypt and you're in that wilderness. The Lord says, if you want to complain that it's not any fun, that's okay. I'll give you bread, I'll give you water, I'll give you things to help you on your way. And I get it. It's going to be tough. Last week was things you shouldn't complain about. And it was, don't complain about wanting to go back to Egypt. Don't say, I'm tired of this, and I just want to be the jerk I was before. I give up on this whole process. I'm done with it. I want to go home to the land of slavery. Yeah, because it was so good there. But today, this finale is a bit more of a practical look at complaining, because I realize that most of our complaints aren't based around our stake in the regeneration process. You know, that's just reality. We're complaining about, I don't like my job, I don't have enough time, the weather stinks, this politician, I don't like them, and these people who don't use turn signals on the road drive me absolutely bonkers, right? That's the kind of complaining we normally do. So that's what today is about. And it was brought to my attention a couple of years ago by some friends of mine who had attended a seminar, and this speaker was all against not just complaining, but negative thoughts in general. And he's like, just don't speak negative things, don't think negative things, don't be around negative people. And the challenge that was given at the end of the seminar was you get this rubber bracelet, and every time you say something negative, you gotta change it over to the other hand. The idea was simple. It would remind them and bring attention to just how much negativity spews from their mouth during the course of the day. And after a couple of days of doing this, my friends were like, yeah, you know, we complain more than we realize. Now they challenged me to join in on this, and I just said it would only double my complaining because I don't want to change the bracelet, so I would just complain twice, so the bracelet would stay on the one hand. And they said, yeah, this game's not for you. So I got out of it by complaining, I guess. And but the idea on complaining is that if you get back to the Greek word, it's about being discontent with your lot. It literally means one who is discontented with their lot in life. So you're complaining and you're discontent, that's, you're nailing it. You're nailing it. And so you can think about being a grumbler, a whinger, however you want to call it. That's the idea. And now, no matter how you cut it, being a complainer or a whinger or whatever, generally, my experience in life, isn't regarded as an admirable quality. People don't hear that, oh yeah, so-and-so's a complainer, and go, whoo-hoo, yeah, this person is great. So while it's not sinful, it's not going to take you to hell, but it's not really going to elevate you either. I think about it in terms of church folks, and we go out in the world and we are a witness to our faith. If we go out and say, yeah, I go to this great life-changing church, but all we do is grumble and complain about the same things that everybody else out there does, doesn't really look like our church is all life-changing and wonderful, does it? We're not really a good witness to our faith. If that person shows up and they experience Sunday coffee and all we're doing is complaining about the same things as everybody else. I can run to the pub and heard this kind of stuff, right? So, not sinful, but not really a gold star for us either. And especially if you look at our lives, our collective group right here, our lives are pretty good. Sure, we all have problems. Absolutely. But consider this. When Paul was writing the New Testament, he had a lot tougher go of it than we do. He was imprisoned in his own home for going out and spreading the good news of the gospel. And at one point, the Romans had enough of that, and they said, okay, well, we're going to imprison you in your own home. So Paul writes the epistles to different congregations. So they're just letters to different congregations that are blossoming in the ancient world. And he gives them instructions. And one thing you notice is that while Paul is under house arrest, he never complains about it. Let me read you a few verses from Philippians. Philippians was written to a prosperous group of Roman believers that had sent Paul a gift. And this is what Paul responds with. He says, "Do everything without complaining or arguing, so that you may become blameless and pure, children of God without fault in a crooked and depraved generation, in which you shine like stars in the universe as you hold out the word of life." I like that. Stand out like shining stars. And that's really where we're trying to drive this bus about complaining. It's like, yeah, you can complain. There are times for it. But what we're looking for here is for us to stand out. When people encounter us, they say, oh, you know, those new church people, boy, they're really nice. No, I don't hear complaints from their mouths. Yeah, because here's Paul who was in prison, and he could have plenty to complain about, right? He could complain all the day about his lot, but he says, no, don't do it. Do everything without grumbling, without complaining. It's going to be okay. Stand out. Show that your faith actually changes you. And I like that story. And I've encountered this story in life where a friend of mine, he ran a business. Who does he promote? He tells me, well, I promote the guys who don't constantly complain about everything. He says, when I see the person, when I have something going on in my company, we get this complaining mood where everybody stands around and gets upset about something. But there's somebody, usually in my organization, who won't complain about it. And when I suss them out and say, well, why aren't you complaining about this situation? It's because this person understands the bigger picture. That it's not all about that one moment. The problems in the company that they're experiencing are related to something larger. And he knows that complaining about this small moment isn't the real problem. We've got to fix the bigger thing. It's the same thing with us. You know, you can stand out by not complaining. You can step back and see a bigger picture. This is what we just sang with the Joseph story. Would it do Joseph any good to complain about being in prison? Are the guards going to say, oh, well, Joseph has a valid complaint. He's innocent. No. Complaining does no good whatsoever under certain circumstances. It can. But generally, it's not the most useful use of our time. I came across this interesting study about complaining. It's a scientific journal. And this guy says, if you're exposed to 30 minutes or more of negativity, it actually peels away the neurons in your hippocampus. And that this part of your brain is used for problem solving. Now, we got really scientific afterwards by saying that if you get exposed to this 30 minutes and your neurons peel away, it says your brain will turn to mush. And I quote that from the study, how your brain will turn to mush. So right there, that might be a little much for you to understand, but you know, it's worth holding on to. So again, there's complaining where you go to dinner and your thing's not cooked right. You say to the staff, hey, this isn't done the way it was supposed to. You got it in the wrong order, or your luggage is lost in the airline. There are times where you go and you're asking for corrective action, where corrective action can actually happen. Complaining in those situations seems to be fine. Bringing something to somebody's attention isn't the problem. The problem we're looking at today is about joining up with everybody else and just enjoying the indignity of the problem. Can you believe what this guy did? Can you believe what these idiots have done? Oh, can you? so easy to do. It's just so much fun to commiserate with others about how awful something just was that happened. Sometimes we even complain about things that we think might happen in the future that haven't actually happened yet. That's my least favorite form of complaining. Oh, this is going to happen because so-and-so did this. Can you believe it? Has it actually happened? No. Well, why are we complaining about these things? Why are you turning your brain into mush over these things that haven't even happened? And I think Paul has some things right to say about complaining. In Ephesians, he writes, "Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building up others according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen." Right. No unwholesome talk. Right. You've got to watch what you say because words have meaning. Words have power. We're not like God that we speak things into existence like the creation story. But we do have our Creator's ability to bring things into existence through speaking. Right? As you say things, it shows what you're focusing on. It brings things into this world at a rate that we're probably unaware of a lot of times. We think they're just words. Those words are a reflection of what's inside. There was a story about a monk who was particularly worldly. And he goes to this monastery. It's very strict, very strict. And they have this vow of silence. That you're not allowed to speak at all. Except once a year. You can speak 2 words. So, after a year, the monk goes to his supervisor, and the supervisor says, "Well, it's been a year. What are the 2 words you wish to speak?" The monk sits there and he scowls. He says, "Bed. Hard." "I see," says the supervisor. So then a year passes, and goes to the supervisor again and says, "What's been another year? What words would you like to speak now?" The monk says, "Food stinks." "See," says the supervisor. One more time, it's been another year. He says, "What do you want to say now?" "I quit." And the supervisor says, "I can see why. All you ever do is complain. All you do." So it's the same thing is true with us. Like if everything that comes out of our mouth is a complaint, we're never going to cross the finish line. We're never going to make it to being the person that we actually want to be. None of us aspire to being the greatest complainer. You don't look around and think, "Oh, I want to be like that person because they can complain like nobody else." It's just not on the list of, desirable traits. And yet, it's something that we are often quite good at. So we've got to make sure that we're not focusing on those things. And that can be what happens to us. Now, the Lord is used to these kind of complaints. He's used to complaining when we say, "Hey, I want this reward. I want this positive outcome. I want something good for me." In the Gospel of Matthew, you have the story of the workers in the vineyard. He says, "I'll pay you a denarius, come work for me for 12 hours, and he keeps bringing more people in." And at the end of the day, the people complain against the landowner, saying, "Hey, these last guys have only worked for an hour, and you have made them equal to those of us who've borne the burden and the heat of the day." Why are these guys complaining? Because they didn't get the reward they thought they were going to get. They weren't elevated for doing more work. Sometimes that's the way it goes. The Lord says, "No, I didn't make this life fair, financially or otherwise for you, but we did agree to a deal." So he answers them, "Friend, I am doing you no wrong. Did you not agree with me for a denarius? Take what is yours and go your way. If I wish to give this last man the same as you, is it not lawful for me to do what I wish with my own things? Or is your eye evil because I am good?" Oh, he's right. It hurts, doesn't it? It hurts that he's right about that. We say, say, that's not fair. The whole world is set up just right for you and the lessons that you need to learn. The Lord may deal with other people in different ways. That's reality. Just like a lot of you have children. Child A has to be dealt with different than child B. You might be someone the Lord says you need to work 12 hours. Some people, maybe you only need the hour. Some people only wake up in the 11th hour. So we don't want to compare ourselves and complain in comparison. Secrets of Heaven warns us. He says it's different once we've been regenerated. This is number 8002. It is different once a person has been regenerated. Then they are indignant if anyone thinks that they do good to their neighbor for the sake of the reward, for they feel delight and bliss in doing a good, but not in repayment. Right? They're not worried about the reward they get. When you're regenerate, you find it offensive to think that you are motivated by the reward. It's kind of the opposite of complaining, isn't it? It's a tough world these days in terms of complaining, because it can hit you from all sides. Friends might do it. Co-workers might get involved in a complaining session. You go on Facebook. I don't know about you, but I see plenty of people complaining on Facebook. Honestly, I start unfollowing them. Just gonna let that go. TikTok, all these different medias that are constantly coming at us. They're complaining about something, and of course, they say they have a solution to our problems sometimes. But I think there's a great lesson in the Old Testament about how we should deal with people who are not benefiting us spiritually. In Genesis 31, it says, Jacob heard that Laban's sons were saying, Jacob has taken everything our father owned and has gained all this wealth from what belonged to our father. And Jacob noticed that Laban's attitude toward him was not the same as it had been before. The Lord said to Jacob, go back to the land of your fathers and your relatives, and I will be with you. Sometimes we have to know when it's time to go. And Secrets of Heaven 4067 talks about this passage in terms of the associate angels and spirits that are with us. And it says, but as is the good is present with a person, so is the community of angels present with them. And as the evil present with a person, so is the community of evil spirits present with them. A person chooses certain communities for himself. That is, he places himself in one of these, where light is brought into association with light. For example, greedy people are in contact with spirits that are in communication with hell, with the man in the midst of them and utterly under their control. So much so that he's not under his own jurisdiction, but under theirs. Although he imagines from the delights he experiences, and so from the freedom he has, that he's in control of himself. All this is to say that as we do things, we're going to get spiritual reinforcement. We like complaining, and that's what we do. And we like to tell stories about all the terrible things that are happening in the world and whatnot. Guess what you're bringing into your life? Spiritual reinforcement to tell you that you're right, you're justified in your dignity, and all these things, and you're just going to bring more complainers into your life. It's not going to really go well for you. And I like to remind people that the blessing of heaven is the exact same thing as the curse of hell. Either way, you're going to be with people just like you. So, as we wind down this series about complaining, it's saying, don't put yourself with a bunch of complainers. Don't be fixated on the bad things of life. Be like Paul. Be like Paul, someone who stands out and says, even though I'm in prison, things aren't going my way, the boss who's in control isn't my friend, I know that the real boss is in control. He's directing my steps. And if I just stay with the program, things are going to be okay. So don't let all unwholesome things come out of your mouth, because all it will do is turn your brain into mush.